The rain drummed against the windows of our cramped studio apartment in Queens, New York, creating a rhythmic backdrop to what would become the worst argument of my relationship with Derek. It was March 2023, and the gray afternoon matched my mood perfectly as I sat at our tiny kitchen table, laptop open, working on a graphic design project for a small bakery in Brooklyn. Seriously, Zara? You're still playing around with that computer nonsense? Derek's voice dripped with condescension as he walked through the door, shaking droplets from his umbrella. His construction boots left muddy prints on our already worn carpet, but he didn't seem to notice or care. I looked up from my screen, where I was carefully adjusting the color palette for a logo design. It's not playing around, Derek. This is work. Real work that pays real money. He let out that familiar laugh, the one that made my stomach churn because it never held any warmth. Come on, babe. Let's be realistic here. You make what? A couple $100 a month? Maybe $500 if you're lucky. He dropped his work bag with a heavy thud and opened the refrigerator, grabbing a beer. Meanwhile, I'm bringing home $4,000 a month from actual construction work. You know, with my hands. Real work. The sting of his words hit deeper than usual. I've been freelancing as a graphic designer for 8 months now, ever since I was laid off from my marketing coordinator position at a small firm in Manhattan. What started as a desperate attempt to make ends meet had gradually become something I was passionate about. I loved the creative freedom, the variety of projects, and especially the direct relationship with my clients who appreciated my work. My clients seem to think it's real enough, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mrs. Chun from the bakery just referred me to 3 other businesses in her neighborhood. Derek popped open his beer and leaned against the counter, his expression a mixture of amusement and irritation. Look, I get it. You want to feel useful. But let's call it what it is. You're dependent on me for everything that actually matters. The rent, the groceries, the car insurance. Hell, even that fancy laptop you're typing on. I paid for it. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Dependent. The label felt like a brand being pressed into my skin, hot and permanent and wrong. I contribute to this household, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I pay for groceries half the time, and I've been saving up. Saving up what? Your little hobby money. Derek took a long swig of his beer and shook his head. Zara, you're 26 years old. Don't you think it's time to get serious about your life? Find a real job with benefits, a steady paycheck, maybe think about our future together. Our future together. The phrase that once made my heart flutter now felt like a cage door slamming shut. I could see it all laid out before me. Years of Derek's condescending remarks, years of feeling small and diminished, years of being reminded that I was just dependent. My freelance income has been growing every month, I said, pulling up my spreadsheet to show him the numbers. In February, I made almost $800. This month, I'm already at $600 and it's only the 15th. Derek glanced at my screen dismissively. $800. Wow. That's almost 1/5 of what I make. Really impressive stuff there, babe. Something inside me snapped. The careful control I'd been maintaining crumbled like a dam, giving way to flood waters. You know what, Derek? You want to talk about dependency? Let's talk about how you depend on me to cook your meals, clean this place, do your laundry, manage your bills, because you can't be bothered to keep track of due dates. Let's talk about how you depend on me to listen to you complain about your coworkers every single day and boost your ego when you're feeling insecure. His face darkened, and he set his beer down hard on the counter. That's different, and you know it. That's what couples do for each other. I'm talking about actual financial contribution. Money. The thing that keeps a roof over our heads and food in the fridge. And I'm talking about partnership. I shot back, standing up from the table. Something you clearly know nothing about. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the continued patter of rain against glass. Derek's jaw was tight, his hands clenched at his sides. I could see him struggling with whether to escalate the fight or try to regain control through his usual method of dismissive remarks. He chose dismissal as I knew he would. You know what? Fine. Keep playing with your little computer projects. Keep pretending you're building some kind of career. But at the end of the day, you're still just a dependent, and we both know it. He grabbed his beer and headed toward the couch, effectively ending the conversation in his mind. But something had shifted in me during that argument. The word dependent no longer felt like a wound, it felt like a challenge. As I stared at my laptop screen, at the beautiful logo I was creating for a business owner who valued my skills enough to pay for them, I made a decision that would change everything. I opened a new browser tab and began researching apartment listings in Queens, Brooklyn, and even Manhattan. If Derek wanted to reduce me to my financial contributions, then I'd show him exactly what those contributions could accomplish. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside our cramped studio, something new was taking root. It wasn't anger or spite, it was determination. Pure, crystalline determination to prove that I was anything but dependent. As Derek settled into the couch with his beer and his phone, scrolling mindlessly through social media, I quietly opened my banking app and looked at my savings account balance. $3,247. Not much by most standards, but it was mine. Every dollar earned through my own efforts, my own skills, my own determination to build something meaningful. That night, as Derek snored beside me in our shared bed, I lay awake planning. I calculated expenses, researched neighborhoods, and most importantly, I started reaching out to potential new clients. If I was going to do this, if I was going to prove my independence in the most concrete way possible, I needed to scale up my freelance income significantly. The word dependent echoed in my mind, but now it sounded different. Now it sounded like a dare. 3 weeks after our fight, I was sitting in a bustling coffee shop in Astoria, meeting with my potential biggest client yet. The morning sun streamed through the large windows as I spread out my portfolio for Marcus Rivera, owner of 3 successful food trucks across Queens and Brooklyn. I have to say, Zara, your work is exactly what I've been looking for, Marcus said, examining my designs on his tablet. Clean, modern, but with personality. My current designer, well, let's just say we're not seeing eye to eye anymore. I tried to contain my excitement as he flipped through my portfolio. This contract could be worth $2,500, more than I'd made in my best month so far. I specialize in brand cohesion across multiple platforms, I explained, pointing to a case study I prepared. Your 3 trucks would have unified branding while still maintaining individual character. Marcus nodded approvingly. How soon could you start? Immediately, I replied, probably too quickly. I mean, I could have initial concepts ready by Friday. As we shook hands on the deal, I felt a surge of confidence that had been building steadily over the past few weeks. Since my argument with Derek, I'd been working with an intensity that surprised even me. Late nights, early mornings, weekends, I was pouring everything into expanding my client base. The walk back to the apartment felt different that morning. Instead of dreading another day of Derek's subtle put-downs, I was mentally calculating how much closer this contract would bring me to my goal. I'd already found the perfect apartment, a small 1-bedroom in Forest Hills with hardwood floors and a separate area that would make an ideal home office. The rent was $1,800 a month, which seemed astronomical compared to our current $1,200 studio, but I'd done the math obsessively. With my growing client base, it was achievable. Derek was getting ready for work when I walked in, the familiar ritual of construction boots and hard hat that had once seemed so admirably blue-collar but now felt like a daily reminder of his dismissive attitude toward my career. How'd your little coffee meeting go? He asked, not looking up from tying his boots. Really well, actually. I just landed a contract worth $2,500. That got his attention. He straightened up, his expression cycling through surprise, skepticism, and something that might have been concern. $2,500? For what? Designing a logo. Complete rebranding package for 3 food trucks. Logo design, vehicle wraps, social media assets, menu designs, promotional materials. I couldn't help the pride creeping into my voice. It's a comprehensive project. Derek was quiet for a moment, and I could see him processing this information. In the 3 weeks since our fight, my income had been steadily climbing, and even he was starting to notice. Last week, when I paid for our entire grocery bill plus a nice dinner out, he made a joke about me treating him for once, but there was something different in his tone. Less condescending, more uncertain. That's great, babe, he said finally, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. Just don't get ahead of yourself, you know? These freelance things can be unpredictable. I nodded noncommittally, but inside I was smiling. Derek's need to diminish my success was becoming more transparent with each passing day, and somehow that made it easier to detach from his opinions. I was building something real, something that existed entirely independent of his validation or lack thereof. Over the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into Marcus's project with everything I had. The food truck designs came together beautifully. Each truck maintained its own personality while clearly belonging to a cohesive brand family. Marcus was thrilled, so thrilled that he referred me to his cousin who owned a chain of laundromats and to his girlfriend who was launching a boutique fitness studio. Meanwhile, at home, the dynamic was shifting in ways both subtle and obvious. I was staying up later working, getting up earlier to respond to client emails, and spending less time cooking elaborate dinners or managing Derek's schedule. It wasn't intentional neglect. I was simply redirecting my energy toward building my future. Derek noticed. How could he not? When you're accustomed to someone organizing your life, it becomes glaringly obvious when that organization disappears. "We're out of groceries again," he mentioned one evening, standing in front of our open, nearly empty refrigerator. "I know," I replied from my laptop, where I was fine-tuning a logo for the laundromat chain. "I've been swamped with deadlines this week. Could you pick some up on your way home tomorrow?" The silence that followed was loaded with expectation. In our normal routine, this would be the moment where I'd apologize, close my laptop, and immediately head to the store myself. But I didn't move. My work was important too, and I had deadlines to meet. Okay, I guess I could stop by the store," Derek said, and I could hear the confusion in his voice. This was uncharted territory for both of us. By the end of April, my monthly income had hit $1,847, more than I'd ever imagined possible when I first started freelancing. I had 6 regular clients, a waiting list of potential projects, and most importantly, enough financial confidence to take the next step. I scheduled an appointment with a real estate agent. Sarah Kim was a petite woman with sharp eyes and an efficient manner who specialized in rentals for young professionals in Queens. We met on a Saturday morning while Derek was playing basketball with his friends, giving me the perfect cover for apartment hunting. "Your budget is realistic for this area," Sarah assured me as we walked through the Forest Hills apartment I'd been dreaming about. "Your income documentation looks solid too. Freelance can be tricky for landlords, but you've got excellent bank statements and client references." Standing in that empty one-bedroom apartment, with sunlight streaming through windows that would be mine, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete ownership of my future. This space would be mine. Every decision about decoration, organization, noise level, cleanliness, mine. "I'll take it," I said, before I could second-guess myself. Sarah smiled. Just like that. Just like that. As we filled out the application paperwork, I mentally calculated the timeline. First month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, moving costs. I'd need about $6,000 total. With my current savings and projected income for May, I could make it happen by the end of the month. Derek's words from our March argument echoed in my mind. "You're still just a dependent, and we both know it." Not anymore, I thought, signing my name to the lease application. Not anymore. The hardest part about planning my move wasn't the logistics, it was keeping it secret. For 3 weeks in May, I lived a double life that would have made any undercover agent proud. During the day, while Derek was at construction sites, I coordinated with movers, shopped for basic furniture, and set up utilities. In the evenings, I maintained the facade of our normal routine while quietly organizing my belongings and transferring my important documents to a secure folder. The apartment application had been approved within 48 hours, thanks to Sarah's efficiency and my solid financial documentation. Seeing my name on that lease agreement felt like holding a passport to freedom. The move-in date was set for May 28th, a Friday, which would give me the weekend to settle in before Derek even realized what had happened. My freelance income was now consistently hitting $2,000 per month, with June already booked solid thanks to referrals from Marcus and word-of-mouth recommendations. The laundromat chain project had led to work with 2 other small business owners, and the boutique fitness studio had been so pleased with their branding that they'd hired me for ongoing social media graphics and promotional materials. But success brought its own challenges. Derek was becoming increasingly aware of my financial independence, and his responses were growing more passive-aggressive by the day. "Wow, eating out again," he commented when I suggested we try a new Thai restaurant in our neighborhood. Someone's really living it up with their computer money. It's called celebrating a successful month, I replied calmly, though internally I bristled at his dismissive tone. I thought we could enjoy it together. Right. Your month. What about celebrating my consistent income that's been paying our rent for 2 years? There it was, the reminder of my supposed dependence, delivered with surgical precision to make me feel guilty for suggesting we spend money I'd earned. 3 months ago, this comment would have made me apologize and suggest we stay home instead. Now it just reinforced my certainty that leaving was the right decision. You're absolutely right, I said, pulling out my phone. Let me cover dinner to show my appreciation for everything you do. Derek looked confused by my response. He'd expected defensiveness or guilt, not agreement and generosity. You don't have to. I insist. My treat. As we walked to the restaurant, I realized how much our dynamic had shifted. Derek's attempts to diminish my achievements were becoming more frequent but less effective. Each passive-aggressive comment only strengthened my resolve and made the idea of my own apartment feel less like a dream and more like an inevitable destination. The secret planning was exhausting but exhilarating. I'd found a reliable moving company that could handle everything in one day, purchased essential furniture that would be delivered directly to the new apartment, and even arranged for internet installation. My new place would be fully functional from day one. The emotional preparation was harder than the practical aspects. Despite everything, Derek and I had been together for 2 years. We'd shared holidays with his family, adopted a routine that felt comfortable even when it wasn't healthy, and created a shared life that I was about to dismantle completely. But every time I wavered, I remembered that March afternoon and the casual cruelty in his voice when he'd called me just a dependent. I remembered all the times he dismissed my career aspirations, minimized my achievements, or made me feel small for dreaming bigger than our cramped studio apartment. 2 weeks before the move, I had another breakthrough client meeting that crystallized everything. Jennifer Walsh owned a successful catering company and was looking to rebrand completely. As we sat in her beautiful office space, a converted warehouse in Long Island City with exposed brick walls and enormous windows, she explained her vision for expansion. I'm tired of being seen as just another catering company, Jennifer said, her passion evident in every word. I want to be known for creating experiences, for bringing artistry to events. Your portfolio shows exactly that kind of elevated thinking. As we discussed the scope of work, a comprehensive rebranding that would include everything from business cards to vehicle wraps to a complete website redesign, I felt that familiar surge of professional excitement. This was what I'd been building toward. Clients who valued my expertise, projects that challenged me creatively, income that reflected my skills and dedication. The budget for this project is $4,500, Jennifer continued, with potential for ongoing work as we expand into the Manhattan market. $4,500. For one project. I maintained my professional composure during the meeting, but inside I was celebrating. This single contract would more than cover my moving expenses and first few months in the new apartment. That evening, as Derek complained about his difficult supervisor and the politics at his construction company, I found myself mentally decorating my new home office. Where would I put my desk to catch the best natural light? How would I organize my supplies and reference materials? What kind of plants would thrive by those east-facing windows? Are you even listening to me? Derek's irritated voice cut through my daydreaming. Of course. Your supervisor is being unreasonable about the overtime scheduling. That was 10 minutes ago, Zara. I was just telling you about the issue with the concrete delivery. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been unconsciously sketching furniture layouts in the margins of my project notes. Sorry, I was thinking about work stuff. Work stuff, Derek repeated flatly. Right. Your little design projects are more important than what I'm dealing with. 6 months ago, I would have immediately apologized and given him my full attention. Now, I simply closed my laptop and looked at him directly. My work is important, Derek. Just like yours is important. We both have professional challenges that require mental energy. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him struggling with my response. He wanted to argue, to reassert his priority in our relationship hierarchy, but my calm acknowledgement of mutual importance left him no clear target for his frustration. Whatever, he finally muttered, turning back to his phone. At least my job doesn't require me to work all hours of the night and weekend. I almost laughed at the irony. Derek regularly worked overtime and weekend shifts, often with minimal notice, and I'd always been understanding and supportive. But somehow, when I worked extra hours building my own business, it was a problem that affected him personally. "You're right," I said mildly. "Freelancing definitely requires flexibility and dedication." Another non-defensive response that left him with nowhere to direct his irritation. I was learning that the best way to handle Derek's attempts to diminish my work was simply to agree with the facts while refusing to accept his negative interpretation. As May 28th approached, my secret preparations intensified. I'd sorted through all my belongings, separating what was mine, what was Derek's, and what we'd purchased together. The shared items were surprisingly few. Most of our furniture had been Derek's before we moved in together, and I'd always been the one to buy household necessities and decorative items. 3 days before the move, I received the best possible confirmation that I was making the right decision. Derek came home from work in an unusually good mood, practically bouncing through the door with excitement. "Guess what, babe?" he announced, grabbing a beer from the refrigerator. "My crew chief is retiring next month, and they're considering me for the promotion. It would mean a significant raise. We're talking about jumping to almost $60,000 a year. That's wonderful, Derek. You've worked really hard for this, right? And here's the best part. With that kind of income, you wouldn't have to worry about this freelance stuff anymore. You could quit all the late nights and weekend work, maybe find a nice part-time job somewhere, something low-stress that would give you more time to take care of things around here." The words hit me like ice water. Even in his moment of triumph, even when celebrating his own professional advancement, Derek's instinct was to minimize my career and return me to a supporting role in his life story. "That's a generous thought," I managed to say, "but I love my freelance work. I'm building something really meaningful. But wouldn't it be nice to not have to worry about finding clients and meeting deadlines all the time? You could relax, focus on us, maybe think about the future we want to build together." The future we want to build together. There was that phrase again, still sounding like a cage door slamming shut. "I'll definitely think about it." I lied, calculating that in exactly 72 hours, I'd be waking up in my own apartment, starting my own life, building my own future. That night, as Derek fell asleep beside me, dreaming of promotions and traditional gender roles, I lay awake feeling grateful. Grateful that he'd shown me, one final time, exactly how he viewed my career and my independence. Grateful that I'd built something strong enough to support myself. And most of all, grateful that in 3 days, I'd never have to have this conversation again. Moving day arrived with unseasonably perfect weather, bright sunshine and a gentle breeze that made carrying boxes feel less like manual labor and more like a celebration. I told Derek I was spending the day helping my college friend Melissa with some freelance project planning, which wasn't entirely a lie since Melissa was indeed helping me coordinate the logistics of my escape. The movers arrived at 8 a.m. sharp, 3 efficient professionals who treated my belongings with careful respect as they loaded everything into their truck. Watching my life get organized into labeled boxes and wrapped furniture felt surreal, like watching a movie of someone else's major life decision. By noon, I was standing in my new apartment surrounded by boxes but feeling more at home than I had in years. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of what would become my home office, painting golden rectangles on the hardwood floors. This space was mine. Every decision from now on, how to arrange the furniture, what color to paint the walls, whether to play music while I worked, would be mine alone. Melissa helped me unpack the essentials: bed setup, basic kitchen supplies, and most importantly, my computer and desk, so I could maintain my work schedule. We ordered pizza and sat on the floor eating directly from the box, laughing about how this felt like our college days, but with significantly better financial prospects. "I'm proud of you, you know," Melissa said, raising her beer bottle in a mock toast. "It takes serious guts to make a move like this." "It doesn't feel gutsy," I replied honestly. "It feels like the most logical thing I've ever done. Like I finally stopped ignoring my own common sense. That's what makes it gutsy. Trusting yourself over everyone else's expectations." By Sunday evening, my new apartment felt genuinely livable. I'd unpacked most of my belongings, hung my frame design prints on the walls, and set up my office space with the kind of organization that would make my work more efficient and enjoyable. The place felt like me in a way our shared studio never had. Derek hadn't called or texted all weekend, which wasn't entirely unusual since he often spent Saturdays playing basketball and Sundays watching sports with his friends. But Monday morning would bring the confrontation I'd been both dreading and anticipating. I didn't have to wait long. At 6:47 a.m. on Monday, my phone erupted with calls and texts as Derek discovered my empty closet and missing belongings. I let it ring twice before answering, wanting to be fully awake and centered for this conversation. "What the hell, Zara? Where are you? Where's all your stuff?" His voice was a mixture of confusion, anger, and something that might have been panic. In the background, I could hear him moving around the apartment, probably checking rooms to confirm what he was seeing. "I moved out, Derek. I have my own place now." "You moved out? When? Why didn't you say anything?" I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I owed him honesty but not an argument. "I moved out over the weekend. I didn't discuss it beforehand because I knew you'd try to talk me out of it, and I'd already made my decision. But we live together. We have a life together. You can't just disappear without warning. I left you a letter explaining everything. It's on the kitchen counter." Silence on his end, presumably while he found and read the letter I'd spent hours crafting. In it, I'd explained my decision clearly and kindly, thanked him for the good times we'd shared, and made it clear that this wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about building the life I wanted for myself. "This is insane, Zara. You're throwing away 2 years together because of one argument, because I was realistic about your little hobby business." And there it was, even in this moment, even faced with the concrete evidence of my financial independence and decision-making capability, Derek still couldn't refer to my work as anything more than a little hobby business. "This isn't about one argument, Derek. It's about fundamental differences in how we view partnership and respect. I need to be with someone who sees me as an equal, who celebrates my successes instead of diminishing them." "I never diminished your successes. Derek, you called me just a dependent and suggested that my career was playing around with computer nonsense. Even Friday night, when you told me about your potential promotion, your immediate thought was that I could quit my work and find a part-time job instead." More silence. I could practically hear him cycling through responses, looking for an argument that would make me sound unreasonable instead of acknowledging the validity of my concerns. "Look, maybe I wasn't always supportive enough, but we can work on that. People grow, relationships evolve. You don't have to blow everything up over communication issues." "Derek, I'm not blowing anything up. I'm building something new. For the first time in my adult life, I'm living in a space that's entirely mine, making decisions based on my own priorities, and proving to myself that I'm not dependent on anyone else for my basic security and happiness." "But what about us? What about our plans?" "What plans? You never asked what I wanted our future to look like. You made assumptions about what I'd be willing to accept based on what was most convenient for you." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, cycling through Derek's various attempts to negotiate, argue, or guilt me into reconsidering. He promised to be more supportive, suggested couples counseling, and even offered to help with my freelance business if I moved back in. But I remained firm. This wasn't about fixing problems in our relationship. It was about recognizing that we wanted fundamentally different things. Derek wanted a traditional dynamic where his career took priority, and mine remained supplemental. I want a true partnership between equals. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said finally. "I really do, but it's not going to be with me." After hanging up, I sat in my new home office, looking out at the tree-lined street beyond my window, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete peace with my own decisions. My phone buzzed with a few more texts from Derek over the next hour, but they gradually shifted from arguing to acceptance to grudging respect. The final text, received at 10:23 a.m., simply said, "I guess I underestimated you. Good luck with everything." That afternoon, I had a video call with Jennifer Walsh to present the final branding concepts for her catering company. As we went through each design element, the elegant logo, the sophisticated color palette, the cohesive visual system that would work across all her marketing materials, I felt that familiar surge of professional pride and creative satisfaction. "This is absolutely perfect," Jennifer said, her excitement evident even through the computer screen. "You've captured exactly what I envisioned but couldn't articulate. This is going to transform how people see my business." After the call, I updated my project tracking spreadsheet and realized that June was shaping up to be my highest earning month yet. Between Jennifer's project, ongoing work with Marcus's food trucks, and 3 new clients who'd found me through referrals, I was projected to earn $2,847 for the month. I leaned back in my new desk chair, looking around my home office with its perfect natural light and organized supplies, and laughed out loud. 6 months ago, Derek had dismissed my computer nonsense and called me just a dependent. Today, I was running a growing design business from my own apartment, supporting myself entirely through my own skills and determination. That evening, I called my parents to tell them about the move and my growing business success. My mom, who had always quietly worried about my relationship with Derek, was openly thrilled. "Sweetheart, you sound happier than you have in years. I'm so proud of what you've built." "Thanks, Mom. It feels good to trust my own judgment for once. Your father and I always knew you had incredible talent. We're just glad you're finally in a position to let it shine." Later that night, as I prepared for bed in my own bedroom, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. It had started with an insult meant to diminish me, but Derek's casual cruelty had actually been the catalyst I needed to recognize my own strength and potential. I wasn't just a dependent. I never had been. I was a skilled professional, a successful business owner, and a woman capable of creating exactly the life she wanted. Derek's opinion of my career said more about his limitations than mine. As I drifted off to sleep in my own apartment, surrounded by the quiet satisfaction of a day well lived and a future full of possibilities, I smiled. Tomorrow I'd wake up and continue building my design business, serving clients who valued my work, and proving every day that the best revenge against someone who underestimates you is simply succeeding beyond their imagination. The word dependent would never sting again. Because now I knew, with absolute certainty, that I was exactly the opposite: independent, capable, and free.